Hello everybody and welcome back to Geeks and Gamers. This is Odin coming to you with another video, and today we're going to talk about the weekend box office totals once again. So, starting off with Smallfoot. So Smallfoot was kind of the big winner of the weekend. It is another kids film animation from Warner Brothers, and it did okay. Obviously this is not doing the typical Disney numbers, the typical Disney Pixar numbers, but it's doing okay. I mean, 38.6 million at this point is not terrible. I mean, especially since this probably was made for a budget under $100 million based off of the fact that we look at the animation, we look at, how long it is, we look at the people involved. It probably was not a huge budget film, so this is a film that probably will make its money back, especially when it is released on DVD Blu-ray. Kids films, especially if they don't do very well, at least at the box office, tend to do much better when it comes to releases, because eventually people want to buy the films. That way they can throw it on every time that they want their kids to chill out, because, oh look, it's animation, and look, it's fun. So we're going to probably see this happen with Smallfoot. So again, did okay for the opening weekend, but overall 38 million, not too great, but not too bad either. Night School has gotten terrible ratings, which is interesting because, it's a Kevin Hart film, and most times people especially critics tend to like Kevin Hart, but apparently with Night School, that is not the case. It has gotten terrible ratings. It was made for $29 million, and worldwide, it's already made $33.5 million. So when you look at it, over the course of its run, it's going to make its money back. At this point, it's already past that, but remember, it's only made 60% of that when you actually break down how much movies and how much production companies tend to make off of a film. It's usually around 60%, as I've mentioned in previous videos. And so with 33.5 million, though, it's off to a good start. The fact that that's just the opening weekend, this film is likely to probably, max out around $100 million or so if I had to make a prediction, which means that at the end of the day, it'll make a little bit of cash. Not enough to justify a sequel, but also enough to be able to make people happy, to make the people who, bankrolled this film happy. But no surprise there, domestic total is 83.6%, while foreign is 16.4%. That's not really going to change much. This is not a film that is going to be geared towards world audiences. This is definitely geared more towards the audiences in the United States. I like Kevin Hart, but I'm probably going to skip this movie because it's got terrible ratings, and Haydish isn't really that funny. I think she's overrated in my opinion. Going to do an update now. So cover this last week with The House with Its Clock in Its Walls. Still one of the worst titles of all time, but still, as I said before, it's going to make money. Worldwide, 53.8 million is the new total. It was made for 42 million, so we've already seen that once again go past it, and by the end of its run, it will make a decent amount of money again. Once this film is, by the end of its run, I would say over $100 million, probably around 150 million if I had to guesstimate. Obviously, I could be wrong on that count, but I think that's kind of what the end goal is going to be, especially, or rather, the end product is going to be, because of all these other things going on. Because it's a kids film, it's got pretty decent reviews, it's got some pretty good buzz around it so far, and so I think overall it's going to keep making money as the film continues to go out. It's not going to make huge money, but I would say the cap of this film is probably around $150 million based on the fact that it's already made $50 million at this point. And we could likely see it, keep up that steam going all to the very end. But if this film makes closer to $100 million, I wouldn't be surprised by that either, because right now, especially when you look at the market, you look at the fact that we're getting into October now. The movies are just starting to pick up, so we got some bigger films coming out next week. For example, we got Venom coming out, A Star Is Born coming out, which I cannot wait to see. I'm so excited to see A Star Is Born. Those are films that are probably going to grossly and vastly outperform, especially over these smaller films. So Night School, that's the reason why it's going to be a lot more limited. House with the Clock Inside the Walls is probably going to be a lot more limited as well. And Smallfoot, as I said, will probably do a lot better in the digital game. Same thing with House with Its Clock in Its Walls. The House with a Clock in Its Walls. Oh my goodness, that's a terrible name. But it's going to do okay in the box office. I mean, rather in the home box office, because of the fact it's a kids film and people are going to want to get it. As I said, though, it is a little bit on the scary side as far as, being for two young kids. And so I think the PG rating is correct. It's not PG-13, but it's definitely a PG film. It's a solid PG film because of the fact it does have some scary images that I think will scare a lot of kids. But the other film that we need to talk about is this good old boy. That is Fahrenheit 11/9. I talked about it the other day. And this is the one where I got attacked saying, "Oh, when did this channel become an alt-right channel?" Blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm sorry, we're talking about a documentary. We're talking about a documentary with the central figure to it, the center of the documentary. The reason why the documentary exists is because of Donald Trump. So of course we're gonna have to talk about that, and we're gonna have to talk about his spin, and also about how well the film's doing. And it's not doing well. It's not doing any better. As you can see, it's right now the 13th ranked. So people say, "Oh, that's not terrible. It's not the worst documentary that's ever been made." Yeah, but it's not doing very well either. And for all the sentiment and for all the talk about how much Trump is hated in this country, you would think that people would want to go see this film, that people would want to have another reason to hate the guy, want to know more about why he's a terrible guy, and people would want to go see that. But it's not happening. And as I said last time, I really do think that the reason why is because if people want to see Trump get badmouthed, if people want to see him get attacked, just turn on the news. because you're going to see it almost on every single news channel, almost on every single mainstream news outlet. You will find that. So people don't really have a reason to go see it because they are basically, this is stuff that they already know. This is stuff that has already been known. But when you look to films that are above that, you look at Death of a Nation, again dealing with a very different perspective on the Trump presidency. But also you keep going up. RBG obviously was a film that came out this year, did very well, heard very good things about it. Of course, you have Fahrenheit 9/11, 2016 Obama's America, again very, very different. But we still see that overall, when it comes to Michael Moore, he has made successful films before. But the reason why it's important to talk about this is because with the current state in our country, with the current division of our country, what this tells us is that it is not nearly maybe as divisive or maybe as polarizing as people might think. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, there's no polarization, there's no one side versus the other, but at the same time, the people who are seemingly on one side of the equation, the people who are seemingly against the person who this film is about, seem not to really care that much about going to see a movie, going to see a documentary about it, which tells us that maybe, just maybe, because again, go back to Fahrenheit 9/11, that's when a lot of people were still pissed off about, George W. Bush and everything that was going on at the time, about 9/11, about the Iraqi war, all these other things. You see that it's changed a lot. Less people are going to want to actually go out to the theaters to have their own thoughts be reaffirmed. And what it also shows us is just how biased the media has become. The fact that people will have no desire to go see a film, because you would think, again, with over half the country, according to polls, hating the guy who's currently in the Oval Office, you would think that at least a large portion of them would love to go out to the theater to go see a film that's bashing the guy. But that hasn't happened. So that causes us to have to look back and say, well, why isn't this happening? What are some ways, what are some things that we can talk about that we can use to explain why that's happening? And it seems to be the fact that people just aren't nearly as polarized as others may think. You look to the fact that it was in 700 more theaters than Death of a Nation. Obviously it's going to outpace Death of a Nation because Death of a Nation's been out for a lot longer. But you look at the number of theaters and how well it did. Roger and Me, 265 theaters, also already outpaced it. When we look to all of these different factors, when we look to all these different things that are going on, this film is most likely going to lose money. The reason why is because we looked at a Variety article, and it tells about how it's doing abysmal. Again, $3.1 million opening, with 1,719 theaters. That's really bad. When you actually break that down and you break the math down, that is a very, very small total per theater draw, especially compared to other films. And also, even when you have Variety say Michael Moore's trump card failed him this weekend, and also will continue to fail him because it's just not doing well. And then you go to The Hollywood Reporter, which says that it was around $4 to $5 million budget for this film, but that just doesn't make any sense. That doesn't hold water because Fahrenheit 9/11 had a budget of around $9 million. So it could be one of two things. Either one, they're not really talking about how much the film took to make, and maybe it was more, maybe it was less, who knows. But I think a more logical answer is that no one wanted to produce this film. And when you think about that, when you think about who wouldn't want to produce a documentary that's going to go into all the bad things about Trump, it tells you about how we're in a different state of our country. It tells you how we are in a very different situation than we once were, especially when Fahrenheit 9/11 came out. And it's that the people are getting all the negativity, are essentially getting a documentary, or at least seemingly it's being portrayed as a documentary every single night on the news. So why would anyone want to go spend their hard-earned money on crap like this, on Michael Moore garbage, on the fact that this guy has taken concepts, has twisted words, twisted interviews, and all this has come out by the fact that people have come out and said, oh no, I was not saying that in that context. Even going all the way back to one of his most successful ones, Bowling for Columbine, there were people mentioning that, the creators of South Park were being quoted in that, and they came out and said, I never said that. That is totally taken out of context. And so what we see here is that just because you hate Trump, just because you hate the current administration, doesn't mean that's going to equal money. And that's fascinating because the media would have you think differently. And I'm not saying that there's not some kind of divide between the two. And I'm not saying whether I support one or the other. Again, when people say, oh, you're just a bunch of alt-right conspiracy theorists, blah, 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 I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is I'm a normal person. I'm a normal guy looking at a situation wondering, okay, what is going on? Why is this happening? Why is it that this film didn't get a producer? Again, when you see Briarcliff, so again, this was independent production, again, compared to Fahrenheit that got Lionsgate. You look to Inconvenient Truth, Parsi, you look to Bowling for Columbine, UA. I mean, obviously you can see that there were some bigger companies that got attached to those other films. So why is it that, one, people aren't going to see this in droves out of their own hatred for the guy? And two, why is it that no one wants to actually produce the film. No one from a bigger production company wants to produce it. This is a guy that has made money off documentaries in the past. So you would think people would say, oh, I want to be on a part of this. So there must be something else going on that led to them saying, no, I'm okay. I'm okay, Michael. I'm not going to produce this one. And it's worth thinking about. But anyway, guys, what are your thoughts about this? What do you think is the reason why this film isn't doing well? Do you think this film is going to end up losing money? Again, when we actually look to the overall money that it's made so far, we have to understand that it's made around, $5 million. And so if the production budget was around $5 to $6 million, as was said in the report, I honestly think it's closer to $9, only because that's how much the 11.9 made. But if the case is that no one was willing to pay for it, maybe it was made under budget. Maybe it was not made for as much as Fahrenheit 9/11 was. And the question is, well, how much money is this going to make? If the fact that there was already a 70% drop from the first weekend to this weekend, it only made barely $1 million over this weekend, and it's not going to make much more. It's going to drop out of more and more theaters. It's going to be awful. And with all of that being said, with all that being taken into account, this film likely can be taken into the fact that marketing cost about half the budget, meaning that this film probably costs around, if we take that $5 million budget, based on its word, it costs maybe $7.5 to $8 million to actually make the film when you include marketing. This film might not even make that much back, seeing that it only gets 60% of that total box office take. So it's going to be interesting to say the least, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, especially when you see on the poster, tyrant, liar, racist, a hole in one. And then, of course, everything starts off with what the F happened is basically the big line that starts off with this film. So it'll be interesting, though. Why aren't the people who hate him so much going in droves to see this? Why aren't the big Hollywood producers producing this film, pouring cash and money into this film? There's something going on, and I really can't wait to see what that actually is. House with the clock inside its walls. Do you think it's going to make $100 million, $150 million? Again, now that I'm thinking more about it, I'm thinking it's going to slow down a lot more than I originally anticipated. Night School doesn't have a shot, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to make its money back. Smallfoot, it's a kid's movie. They usually make their money back when it comes to the home marketing. But guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. I'm all over the place today. It's been a crazy weekend. I had my birthday on Friday, and it was great. And also, it's always great to be a part of this channel as well. But I am definitely really sore. So sorry if this was a little bit all over the place compared to my other videos, which are usually all over the place. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And as always, God bless.